Another great case study, because you wouldn't let me leave without telling this one, is from the film Prey. I don't know if anybody has seen the Predator prequel that came out on Hulu. Anybody in the chat, feel free to chime in, because I know it was a fan favorite for those that love the Predator universe. But there's a great backstory to that project. And so highly recommend watching after this. So I'll tell you why. So when they first approached us from the 20th Century team, got a few people who have seen it, from the 20th Century team about making this film, we had a really deep conversation about the fact that the story was going to center on a young Comanche woman who was a warrior. And she was going to be the one to fight the predator. She's a teenager. And that we were going to set it in a time period right before sort of the quote unquote westward expansion of the United States, meaning a lot of what ended up becoming a massacre and conflict with European settlers and native and indigenous tribes and communities. And so as we were talking about it from the get-go, there was a move to say, we need to make this film in Comanche. Now, I'll explain why this is so important. For those who are not familiar, a lot of native and indigenous tribal languages have been lost to history, mainly because either communities were exterminated, taken off due to colonialism, quite frankly, and or have died out over time. And when you know that language is culture and culture is language, you need to keep the language alive to keep the culture alive. And so there was a great movement from the filmmaking team from the beginning that because this was going to go on streaming, here's another really interesting factoid, it was going to go on streaming, that we were going to make a full Comanche version. In fact, we wanted to make that version only, but we ended up having to make it in English as well. And what's incredible is because it went on streaming, we were able to have two separate titles, one for the English version and one for the Comanche version. And they got equal footing, which would have never happened if we did a theatrical film release. So the technology actually enabled a moment of equity around language and culture that we actually may have not been able to see otherwise. And secondly, you can go watch that Comanche dub right now on Hulu, and I highly recommend you do, because at least two of our lead actors dubbed their parts in Comanche fully. So you get their performance in their native language. And that you cannot, there's no price on it. That is the most amazing thing you could see creatively.